You are watching A News. I'm Katie Wilson. Here are the top stories for today. The White House confirms that Trump tariffs will go through as promised. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says that the EU is prepared to respond to US tariffs. Tensions between China and Taiwan escalate as China continues military drills near the island. US President Donald Trump is calling today Liberation Day. It follows the start of tax hikes, which he says are aimed at protecting American industries. Later, the White House is set to unveil a broader set of trade tariffs.
It's being called Liberation Day in the US as President Donald Trump's tariff hikes begin on the auto car industry amid trade war tensions. This industry is expected to be one of the hardest hit. Meanwhile, a 25% tariff on foreign vehicle imports is set to take effect on Thursday, followed by tariffs on auto parts beginning in early May. Additionally, Trump has announced a 25% tariff on imports from any country that purchases oil or gas from Venezuela from today. He says increasing the tariffs is central to his America First trade policy, designed to boost US manufacturing and reduce reliance on foreign goods. Economists warn it could lead to higher consumer prices, disrupted supply chains, and potential job losses. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says this is just the beginning.
April 2nd, 2025 will go down as one of the most important days in modern American history. Our country has been one of the most open economies in the world, and we have the consumer base hands down, the best consumer base. But too many foreign countries have their markets closed to our exports. This is fundamentally unfair.
Later, a broader package of trade tariffs is expected to be announced.
China, based on the fact that
Trump has vowed to implement reciprocal tax hikes against countries that impose duties on US exports. Trump is scheduled to formally announce the new set of tax hikes later at 4 p.m. local time in the White House Rose Garden. However, officials have indicated that final decisions regarding the specifics and targets of these measures are still being determined.
The European Union is prepared to respond to potential US trade tariffs with strong countermeasures if necessary. That's according to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Her remarks come as trade tensions between the EU and the US remain under close watch.
The European Union will be prepared to retaliate against US trade tariffs with strong countermeasures if necessary, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said. She stated in a speech that the focus is on a negotiated solution. Von der Leyen noted that the EU will do everything necessary to protect its interests.
Europe did not start this confrontation. We think it is wrong. But my message to you today is that we have everything we need to protect our people and our prosperity. We have the largest single market in the world. We have the strength to negotiate. We have the power to push back. And the people of Europe should know that together we will always promote and defend our interests and our values, and together we will always stand up for our Europe.
She mentioned the importance of dialogue, but made it clear that the EU would not hesitate to respond if required.
Our strategy builds on 3 pillars. First, we are open to negotiations. We will approach these negotiations from a position of strength. Europe holds a lot of cards, from trade to technology to the size of our market. But this strength is also built on our readiness to take firm countermeasures if necessary. All instruments are on the table.
The statement comes as trade discussions between the EU and the US continue, with both sides weighing their next steps.
Canada has stated that it will be very deliberate in taking countermeasures against the US in response to what it considers unjustified actions by the US administration. The statement was made by Prime Minister Mark Carney, who emphasised that Canada will not allow the US to weaken or dominate the country. He plans to engage in negotiations with President Trump after the election, while Canadian ministers will maintain regular communication with US officials in the meantime. Our Washington correspondent Ubi Shabandar joins me now. Ubi, President Trump is expected to make an announcement today on new tariffs. What more do we know?
April 2nd is Liberation Day here in the United States. That's according to President Trump's team. We're expecting a very ceremonious layout in the in the White House Oval Garden, where President Trump will be surrounded by his entire cabinet, as he is expected to announce the most wide-reaching tariffs to be announced in modern memory. So let's just sort of open up the aperture here a little bit. And what is a tariff? Essentially, a tariff is a tax on goods produced or imported from overseas. And the White House is saying that this is about jobs, that so many countries overseas, including the European Union, Canada, and China, have a significant amount of tariffs on American goods. And President Trump's argument is that it is only fair for the United States to reciprocate and put tariffs of its own. We've seen in the past few days the White House posting on social media tariffs on American agricultural goods and dairy products that are being placed by the EU, India, and Canada. And so what we are expecting here is a White House essentially make a broad-reaching announcement of tariffs that go on top of previously existing tariffs, such as the ones on Canada, China, and Mexico that the White House has placed due to concerns that those countries are not doing enough to curb the smuggling of the deadly drug fentanyl that has killed thousands of Americans and is being smuggled into the U.S. on a regular basis. The big question here is, what are the details? Is this going to be an across-the-board tariff on all products produced overseas? Will there be some exemptions? We don't know just yet. So the markets and and some of America's most important foreign trading partners are going to be looking at the details that are going to be provided by the president himself when he makes that major announcement. The reason why the White House is calling it American Liberation Day is because they believe these new tariffs will reshore jobs that have been moved overseas and ensure that American manufacturers, including major auto manufacturers, are protected from what the White House considers to be unfair trade practices by some of America's biggest trading partners. But certainly, we are expecting an impact on international markets once this announcement is made by President Trump.
Thanks, Ubi. Now, talking about the impact of these tariffs, what is the real-world impact that we might see from these tariffs? And talking about these trading partners, which countries should we be focusing on?
Yeah, so we've heard from President Trump when he's been asked about the potential impact on consumers before, saying that, look, there is going to be a rough spell, that prices could potentially go up. There's going to be an adjustment period, particularly when it comes to the chain of goods, the supply chain, because a good may be manufactured here in the U.S., but a lot of these factories and manufacturers rely on a supply chain that is global. So if we do see an across-the-board tariff on anything or any parts, small parts that are produced overseas, that might have a short-term impact on consumer prices, particularly on goods such as vehicles. And so that has been a concern. There has been some concern by other economic advisors that the markets may not react well. We have seen the markets going up and down in the previous few days due to the uncertainty of what exactly will be in that tariff. And some of America's biggest trading partners like the EU, Canada, Mexico, and China are expected to be the most impacted by this announcement. But we have seen a reaction by some countries even before the tariff announcements have been made. Israel, Bahrain, and some other countries have already announced that they are ending all tariffs on American goods. So that is the type of impact that I think President Trump's team and the president himself wants to have here, is by just making the threat of additional American tariffs would be enough to force countries to end any tariffs that they have on the books on American goods. In fact, we've already seen the Premier of Ontario in Canada, Doug Ford, saying that that he would end any tariffs on American goods if the U.S. reciprocates. So it's a matter of who will blink first. So President Trump here believes that tariffs are an important policy to bring billions of dollars back to the American treasury and to protect the American workers. And the European Union, which exports a lot of its goods to the U.S., is expected to be the most impacted here. Of course, President Trump is saying that, well, if the EU is worried about American goods, then countries such as Germany, which is the largest economy in the EU, should end all taxes and tariffs that they have on American manufactured goods. It is only fair. So that is the argument the White House is making. The question is, will there be massive reciprocal or retaliatory tariffs by other countries? And that might lead to a trade war across the globe. But certainly we're hearing nothing but enthusiasm coming from the White House when this expected announcement is being made, a move that President Trump says is necessary to kickstart the American economy.
Thanks very much for your analysis there, Ubi. Thanks for joining us from Washington. Now, China has conducted military drills around Taiwan for a second day as tensions in the region continue to rise. State broadcaster CCTV showed footage of the army preparing rocket-launched vehicles, while fighter jets, Navy ships and Coast Guard vessels took part. According to reports, the drills tested maritime and air strategic formations near Taiwan. It described them as a warning against separatist movements and a necessary step to protect national sovereignty. Taiwan condemned the exercise but says it had not observed any live fire. Ukrainian and Russian officials have both reported overnight strikes on their territories as both sides accuse each other of breaking a US-brokered partial ceasefire.
8 people have been injured, including 3 children, following a Russian drone attack on the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. The attacks came as both sides accuse each other of breaking a US-brokered partial ceasefire on strikes on energy and Black Sea infrastructure. Authorities say 10 houses were hit in the overnight attack, which injured a 9-month-old infant, a 7-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl. In Russia, 2 high-rise buildings have been damaged in the southern city of Taganrog after Ukrainian drone attack. Authorities have declared a state of emergency in the region following the overnight attack that prompted the evacuation of 85 residents.
To Syria now. Our correspondent Maria Rodriguez-Abalde has a special report from Aleppo's quarter controlled by the Kurds and isolated from the main part of Euphrates.
El-News is the first channel to enter in the Kurdish controlled areas in the north of Aleppo, but today is a difference because the civil council of the Ashrafiyeh and Sheikh Maksud neighborhoods are implementing the agreement with the Syrian Democratic Forces. Sheikh Maksud and Ashrafiyeh are considered neighborhoods within the city of Aleppo. The Ministry of the Interior, in cooperation with the Internal Security Forces, is responsible for protecting the residents. The prosecution of anyone wanted before the agreement will be forbidden, and the prisoners in both sides will be also released. The provisions of this interim agreement will apply until the Joint Central Committees agree on a sustainable solution. The Ministry of Interior, in cooperation with the Internal Security Forces, bears the responsibility for protecting the residents of the 2 neighborhoods and preventing any attacks or harassment against them. Also, armed manifestations are prohibited in the 2 neighborhoods, and weapons are the exclusive domain of the Ministry of Interior's Internal Security Forces. Earthworks will be removed from public roads, while the main checkpoints will remain under supervision of the ministry until security and stability are restored. Military forces will withdraw along with the weapons from the 2 neighborhoods to the area east of the Euphrates, and freedom of movement will be guaranteed. Based on the desire to promote coexistence, preserve civil peace, and achieve the goals of the Syrian revolution for freedom and dignity, and based on the belief that consensus among the various components of the Syrian people is the best way to confront current challenges, now we have this new reality for this new Syria.
The death toll is continuing to rise after last week's earthquake in Myanmar. Local media say nearly 3,000 people have lost their lives. According to reports, more than 4,000 were injured and more than 350 are still missing.
Finding anyone alive has become more challenging in the debris after the earthquake that struck Myanmar and neighbouring Thailand. The death toll has now risen to nearly 3,000. 4,000 people were injured and 373 are still missing. This was according to the latest data shared by the local media stations. This rescuer in Mandalay says the conditions of searching or even finding some life has become testing.
There is zero possibility of finding survivors. It is the 5th or 6th day after the earthquake and the weather is extremely hot, so it is not possible for people to stay alive in this situation. We have only recovered bodies so far.
However, officials haven't lost all hope in Bangkok.
Hope, but frankly, hope gets a little bit slimmer every day, each day pass, But I think today our staff got phone call from Myanmar that they just found a survivor. How old? One survivor, and it happened at the same time. So it happened there, it can so happens here too. Yeah.
Beijing has sent the first batch of $13.9 million worth of emergency supplies, including tents, blankets and first aid kits to Myanmar. The United States has also pledged $2 million worth in aid, while Russia has set up a mobile hospital in Mandalay. India deployed a search and rescue team, medical professionals and aircraft carrying essential items. The European Union has launched a humanitarian air bridge operation, sending 80 tons of supplies, including child protection kits and health materials for the country, to be distributed by UNICEF and local partners. The United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, says the number of injured or deceased infants is still unknown. There are now also fears that diseases could spread.
Now, we've seen the official figures in terms of the death toll. We think it's very likely that there are hundreds of children that are among the dead. We believe that there are children that are under the rubble. And we also know that there are children that have lost their parents. So when there's a sudden onset emergency, often what happens is what we call family separation. That means children may be losing their caregivers, or they may be separated. In the chaos and confusion, they may be separated. And that creates new risks for children, because children are reliant on their parents for food, for safety, for education, all these things. So one of the priorities needs to be safety for children. That needs to be the top priority. Shelter is incredibly important, and making sure children are with their families.
As the situation develops, the full scale of the damage may not be clear until the coming days or weeks, as both nations begin the long journey toward recovery.
Val Kilmer, the American actor best known for playing Batman, has died from pneumonia at 65 years old. Kilmer passed away Tuesday night in Los Angeles, surrounded by family, as confirmed by his daughter. In the 1990s, he became an important Hollywood actor, best known for his role in Batman Forever and for his intense approach on screen. Many fans and colleagues shared condolences on social media, honouring him as one of America's greatest actors. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is set to visit Paris today, where he is scheduled to meet with French Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs Jean-Noël Barrot. According to the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the talks will cover a broad agenda focusing on bilateral relations, Turkey-European Union ties, regional conflicts and global security issues. Economic cooperation is also expected to be a key topic, with Fidan set to discuss strengthening ties in trade, investment, energy and tourism. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier continues his first ever visit to the South Caucasus. After holding talks in Armenia, the head of the German state is visiting Baku, where he was received by President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev. After the meeting, the heads of state held a joint press conference. A News' Orkan Amishov has more.
Well, the press conference with the participation of Azerbaijani and German presidents is now over. It, of course, followed the bilateral face-to-face meetings and also meetings involving both delegations. A couple of important matters have been reflected upon. Of course, the world has changed quite dramatically as of early 2025. It's a time for opportunity, and those opportunities are to be properly utilized. President Aliyev initially welcomed German president. He referred to the previous contacts, of course, when German president was foreign foreign minister. They knew each other and there have been contacts in the past, of course. And the wide range of issues revolving around connectivity, energy connections, middle corridor, importance of Azerbaijan in a geographical and political sense of this word, importance of getting access to markets in Central Asia, and Azerbaijan's pivotal role, and other matters have been reflected upon. Of course, peace treaty negotiations between Azerbaijan and Armenia also referred to, and Azerbaijani president made very clear that although of course draft text of that agreement is now over, that 17 provisions have been agreed, there are other conditions which are not related to peace treaty. They're about the Armenian constitution, also dissolution of the OSCE Minsk group. They need to be sorted out as well. And once all of these things are sorted out, peace treaty will be signed. And German side was mostly reflecting on the necessity of seizing the moment, that it is too much a great important moment to be missed, and also of course trade turnover between these two countries have been reflected upon. There's an increase, and bilaterally of course the trade is going to be a central element. Azerbaijan's exports to Germany were reflected upon as well. Green energy was another element, and on the whole I suppose that positivity seemed to dominate today's press conference, and the answers to the questions also added to the momentum that we're currently observing in bilateral Azerbaijani-German relations. Orkan Amashov, A-News.
Now, Orkan had the opportunity to ask a question to German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier during the briefing. Let's take a look.
Orkan Amashov, A-News TV station. Thanks to both presidents. My question is addressed to President Steinmeier. Currently, former leaders of the separatist puppet regime created by Armenia inside Azerbaijan, in Azerbaijan's Karabakh region, are on trial in Baku. In their testimonies, they have admitted that bombardment of Azerbaijani cities and villages, which resulted in the deaths of more than 100 civilians, were carried out under the direct orders of Armenia's political leadership, and namely Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. Bearing in mind all of these grave war crimes, the question is why no sanctions were imposed by the European Union and its institutions on Armenia and on its political leadership. Thank you.
I believe this is a repetition of the first question we've already addressed. When I look at German foreign policy, which I have followed closely for several years, and in many of those years also had responsibility for, I can only say, on behalf of myself and our country, that we have never accepted a state of unrest. We have never supported territorial claims by one state over another. Rather, our position has always been that internationally recognized borders must be upheld and respected. In this regard, I can only say that Germany has remained true to its position over the past year. And I hope that this is also understood here in the region. What we want is for the years of unrest between these two countries to give way to a future of peaceful coexistence, a future in which stability in Armenia and Azerbaijan contributes to broader stability across the entire South Caucasus region. I believe that would be a gain for all sides.
Orkan joins me now in the studio. Orkan, as we've seen, you were at that press conference today. Talk me through your observations.
Yeah, it's a very, very important moment in bilateral relations between Germany and Azerbaijan, of course. And Azerbaijan is a very important partner for Germany. It's Germany's biggest economic partner, trading partner in this part of the world, in the South Caucasus. I think that three different elements could be distinguished. One is, of course, bilateral relations. The second element would be more in the direction of EU policy and Germany's influence on shaping that policy and wider connectivity-related matters. And the third element will be potential German role in Azerbaijani-Armenian peace negotiations and their position, as we have heard during this press conference. About bilateral relations, trade is key there. Azerbaijan, as I said, is the biggest trading partner biggest economic partner of Germany in this region. And interestingly enough, Germany is Azerbaijan's second biggest trading partner inside the European Union after Italy. It's a very important moment, and we know that this
this Chamber of Commerce of Germany abroad. This organization is located in Caucasus, located in Azerbaijan. President Aliyev mentioned that during the first 2-3 months of this year, trade turnover between these countries has tripled. Effectively, it's all about exports, crude oil export, and also, of course, green energy is going to play an important role in that regard. So the bilateral relations are going to improve, of course, because the solid foundation is present there, and if there's a political will, they will improve. But wider issues for Germany, middle corridor is absolutely key. And this middle corridor effectively means that Central Asia and Europe must be connected, and must be connected by Azerbaijan. And I expect that Germany is going to invest in this project. And the third element, of course, Azerbaijani-Armenian peace negotiations.
Yeah, so focusing in a bit more on those peace negotiations, what was Germany's take on that? Are they eager to see something signed?
I think that Germany's position is very much similar to the positions maintained and demonstrated by many other European countries. They're effectively saying that the time has arrived, that the opportunity must be seized, and Azerbaijan and Armenia should sign a peace deal. They welcome the fact that the negotiations on the text of the deal are currently over, but of course there are points of difference. Azerbaijan believes that Armenia, first of all, should remove that territorial pretension from its constitution, and also OSCE Minsk Group should be dissolved. My feeling is that there is a sense on the part of European countries, including Germany, that Azerbaijan should be more sort of merciful, more relaxed about these preconditions, the prerequisites, and sign the deal and with a policy of those other issues being resolved at a later stage. But of course, that mutual trust should be built between Azerbaijan and Armenia. I think it's a very positive moment, in particular after what happened just the day before this trip. We know that unfortunate Instagram post. Today we don't reflect on that because that's something which has been fixed and sorted out. I think that today is an important day, and the positivity seemed to pervade within that building where I was whilst attending that press conference.
Sounds like a really interesting day, Orkan. Thank you so much for your insight. Now, the demand and recognition for pomegranates grows daily, with Forbes suggesting that Azerbaijan should be the face of the global pomegranate boom.
Pomegranates, with their vibrant colours and nutrient-packed seeds, are gaining popularity in the health world. While they are considered an exotic fruit in the Western world, pomegranates have long been cherished in many cultures, particularly in Middle Eastern cuisines, and are beloved in countries like Turkey, India and Iran. For Azerbaijan, where the pomegranate is the national symbol, it stands out among other countries for its almost sacred approach to the fruit. A recent Forbes article suggests that Azerbaijan should be considered the face of the global pomegranate boom, highlighting the country not as the largest producer, but as the most intriguing, diverse and possibly the most delicious. The country grows over 200 varieties, including 60 indigenous ones across 9 climatic zones, supported by centuries of traditional knowledge and cultural reverence for the fruit. This heritage is driving success as the Made in Azerbaijan label gains global recognition. In January 2025, Azerbaijan exported 2,278 tonnes of pomegranates, valued at $2.14 million, according to the Ministry of Agriculture. The ministry reported a 33.3% increase in value and a 35.3% rise in volume compared to the previous year. Azerbaijan's advantage comes from its terroir, especially in the Goychay region, known for its unique climate and rich soil, making it famous for premium pomegranates. Since 2006, the Goychay Pomegranate Festival has celebrated the fruit, and in 2020 it was recognised by UNESCO as part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. As global demand grows, projected to nearly double to $10.6 billion by 2033, countries with export capabilities are rushing to expand production. With climate change disrupts production in major regions, Azerbaijan's high-altitude, arid zones provide a stable environment for cultivating quality pomegranates. Leveraging this advantage, the country is not only increasing exports of fresh fruit, but also focusing on value-added products like extracts, juices and natural cosmetics.
You were watching A News. Thank you for staying with us. Bye for now.